Hello, Internet. Happy Tuesday, June 9th. Today, we are going to be talking about professional evaluation of tea using the ISO certified cupping sets. These cupping sets are actually used also in coffee as well as other beverages. Uh, Using this to do the brewing and then decant into the other bowl where we'll then be using that for drinking the liquor of the tea. So, just a little side note: in the tea world, we call the liquor is the liquid that is decanted from the tea brewing. That's what we actually drink is the liquor. It's not alcohol. Um, yeah. Before I get into the tea education portion of today's session, I wanted to do a little industry update. Liquor, soup. Hi Eric Glass, good to see you. You're right, it could also be called the soup. But I guess maybe that must be a difference between Eastern and Western culture. Because, yeah, in Eastern culture, it's called soup. Like in China, it'd be called soup. You got your soup spoon and you take your soup. But in the Western world, we call it liquor. Um, you know, so good. Thanks for bringing that out. So before I hop into the education portion, I did want to do an industry update. One of the big things to happen in the tea world over the past few days. I'll see you on Facebook. You're not going to have my nice flower there, though, Eric. One of the big things that has taken over the tea world news, and today I just saw the article in BBC News, so this is going into major news outlets, is the story of how major tea brands are reacting to the protests going on, and either their alliance or, I should just say alliance only. There's nothing to do with non-alliance. It's all alliance with the Black Lives Matter movement. This particular example, which I saw going down on Twitter, that's where this mostly went down, involving hundreds of different users all interacting with each other, was over a major not British style, it's just British period, a British tea company that was called out by someone in their community for, this person was actually congratulating this brand for not aligning with Black Lives Matter. And this brand went ahead and, I'm not going to say who the brand is, it's just a brand, a major brand. They tweeted back to this user that they are aligned with this movement and that they're taking their time to study and educate themselves before they make any kind of statement. But then they hashtagged it Black Lives Matter and told that user to never buy their tea again. This then instigated another major tea brand. So now we're talking with the two major tea brands in the UK using Twitter as an outlet to tell people that if you don't believe Black Lives Matter, don't buy our tea. Interesting story. It made for very interesting comment reading in the tweets. But there's a bigger issue here that I want to address, and that really got my blood boiling. As someone that's been advocating for the lives of marginalized people mattering for years. TLET now is over 8 years old, and since day one of launching our social media, launching our business, launching our messaging, doing everything that we do, that has been the core of our work And it's true that the demographic of marginalized people in the world that we represent through our work may not be specifically Black. Um, it is minorities and it is marginalized, and that's the matter that we are addressing here. And, you know, there is a long history, long history, especially with British tea, especially of colonization and of oppression and of slavery too. And these are all the basis and the foundation of the systemic problems of the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think it's, I'm enthusiastic now that people are talking about it. Yes. And I'm supporting those conversations. And this space is a platform for those conversations. So if you feel that you inspired, that you want to say something, there's this link right over here, bit.ly/TLET Tea Party. If you visit that link, it will take you here with me and we can have the conversations, and I'd be more than happy to have those conversations with you in whatever nature they are, because that is what our platform is. Our platform is accountability. Our platform is all about those systemic changes to bring more opportunity, autonomy, and dignity to especially marginalized people in this world, which there tends to be a very strong correlation between skin color, minority status, as well as the status of marginalization among those communities. And so these major tea brands are now being applauded for hashtagging their tweet and telling people not to buy their tea if they don't support Black Lives Matter. And is that fair? I mean, I definitely don't think it's fair for the efforts of a company like ours, but even outside of that, remove my ego from this conversation, from this situation, and purely just talking about the efficacy of this movement and of what's going on around this movement. And now that brands are involved in this movement, how does a brand navigate this? How many blacked out screens with apologies of we're educating ourselves have we seen now, even on Instagram? It's everywhere. Is it effective? Really effective at these systemic changes? I don't know, and in those chain of responses to these tweets with these two major brands in the UK, a great majority of the responses in the tweets was in support, that they felt good. They felt good seeing these brands show their support for Black Lives Matter. Yet, there are thousands upon thousands of Black lives that are being exploited every day in that tea bag. I know it. But those Black lives are somewhere else. So, we don't see them, we don't know them. And I think that there is a lot of room for education, yes. And a lot of room for transparency, yes. To really say, yes, these lives do matter. All of them matter. Not just the one here in our own communities, not just the ones in the United States that are serving as an example of this movement, but there are Black lives in other places. Actually, one time I had a somebody on Facebook. This was personal. This was just a personal thing, and I was talking about a specific thing around Caribbean culture, West Indian Caribbean culture, and it was in regards to cultural appropriation, which is something that we talk about often, or I talk about often, in our work here with tea, as we are exploring and connecting with other cultures and trying to share that exploration. It's very important to know if you are sharing, if you are acquiring and sharing those cultures respectfully. And so I had said something, about Caribbean culture, a specific brand of Caribbean culture as well. Like this was very niche, and someone came in and assumed it was about Black culture, that I was making some type of comment about Black culture. I was like, no, 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 no. This is a very specific, part of Black culture, and actually, it's not just Black culture because this population has a very diverse, population of folks. So it's not just Black culture. But this person was Black, and so they were offended, like immediately offended, and so yeah, that's something that we are definitely going to have to grow some confidence in, is having the conversations about miscommunication or whatnot. But anyway, I did some research for this person just to show them the the picture of what the Black diaspora looks like around the world, and the majority of Black skinned people, people with Black skin in this world, live in rural Africa. I was amazed by that. Like, I kind of guessed that. I was thinking that's gotta be, living in rural Africa, their perception of life and their perception of culture is way different. So even that diaspora is so diverse, and but then in this conversation we often forget about, and those are people that are even more marginalized. Yes, they're not dealing with police brutality, but they're dealing with like generations upon generations upon generations of systemic immobilization, of systemic marginalization. And tea is one of the major contributors to that colonization. So any tea company that is going to hashtag Black Lives Matter on their brand needs to take the additional steps to look at every single life involved in their product. This is not just a marketing opportunity. And, you can tell I'm very impassioned by this because my work has been this for years. Like, I'm not new to this. I didn't just last week start caring about the supply chain and the farmers and the people involved in our agriculture systems. This is something that's been going on for years. And I wasn't always like this. When I was younger, I was in a very different situation. I had a very different understanding of communities and of marginalization and minorities, and and I'm still learning. But right out of college, I had the great privilege of realizing that I needed to discover more and learn more. And I had a friend that convinced me to join the Peace Corps. I didn't know what the Peace Corps was, and so I'm grateful to that friend forever, because that experience has just completely opened my eyes. And I lived in rural Africa and saw what true marginalization is. Like, marginalization basically means like left in the dust while the rest of the world elevates. So it's all the people left in the dust. In the context of the American story, the American dream story, that's the basis of what we're dealing with here. This entire population of people, just based off of the color of their skin, was left behind. To be able to pursue that American dream like everybody else. This exact same thing happens in the tea fields. They're left behind. The laborers are left behind and not able to mobilize themselves, to dream bigger and to do bigger. So yeah, that's my thing about that. So please, if you're going to use the hashtag, especially if you work in tea, because tea is like probably more than any other agriculture commodity crop, is the most connected and the most rooted in colonialization and marginalization of people. So yeah, if you see a tea company, use that hashtag. Please don't be afraid to ask. Even if it's on Twitter, to ask. And that was something. There was a couple in this big Twitter fiasco that happened. There was a small handful of people that called them out and asked about, well, what about the supply chain? What about the history of slavery and colonial mindset when these tea industries were being built in countries that were colonized? Of course, the brands didn't respond to those tweets. But the more that gets out, the more people will ask. And it's very important. If we're going to become active in supporting the more marginalized people in our own communities that we deal with every day, I don't think that we should stop that concern in our own borders. Like, this is something that's happening all over the world. Obviously, this is a problem not just in the United States. These are United Kingdom companies that got involved in this Twitter, and ultimately they're winning, right? Their hashtag helped them. Both of them have the hashtag. Incredible. Um, yeah. The term used on Twitter is virtue signaling. So I'm gonna look that word up just to give a. I mean, I've heard it a lot. I could probably define it within context, but I want to see like if this is like an official like defined word. So Cambridge Dictionary has it. Let's read it. An attempt to show other people that you are a good person. For example, by expressing opinions that will be acceptable to them, especially on social media. That's funny. This is like a whole term and a whole word that has completely developed purely from social media. So here's the example. Virtual signaling is the popular modern habit of indicating that one has virtue merely by expressing disgust or favor for certain political ideas or cultural happenings. So yay. At least we have something good, to jump on, to get behind. But really get behind it. That's it. I know this was supposed to be an update, and I'm really just using it as a platform for my opinion, but this is a big thing. So yeah, if you go Google like tea news, actually this is like the tea industry. This is the top news of the day. If you just Google tea industry in the news, but if specifically just maybe tea company Black Lives Matter Twitter, just Google that and you'll get it. You'll get right to that news. All right, moving on. Thank you for letting me express that very passionate subject that I have. Virtue signaling is, I guess it's something I've been talking about with years. I mean, even with the term direct trade and ethical sourcing, our company does ethical sourcing. What does that mean? Like, let's go deeper. Like, you really want to do ethical sourcing? Let's involve everybody in this definition that we have as ethical, before we just assume that it must be good, because that was the downfall of something like fair trade certification. All right, so the little bar says tea education, so time to move on to tea education. This is my professional cupping set. I usually don't drink tea from this, but I did our first Taste the People's Tea event series this morning, and so I had these out for that, and I figured I'd just keep them out. I have 3 different sets here. Excuse this one. And my spoon. So this is my cup of water to keep my spoon clean. Each cupping set consists of the decanting bowl and the steeping apparatus. So the steeping apparatus just has a little hole there, has the lid. Sometimes the lid will have a hole to help with airflow, and the tea gets steeped inside here and decanted into this bowl. I have 3 teas here. Only one of them I steeped the tea in the proper way. The rest of them I did differently, and I'll explain that. But so you see in this bowl I have the tea. I've actually drank a lot of it, but had the This is black tea. So all of these teas are coming from Alfredo Lin in Nantou, Taiwan. This is his 18 ruby black tea. Very nice tea. So what's cool about these cupping sets is that after you've steeped the tea and you want to look at the wet leaf, it's very easy to put it on display. Easy. You can see the leaf there. This is the steeped leaf. And the dry leaf here. So this is usually not part of the cupping set. This is just a display cup I have in the front to show the dried leaf. So really great way to see the dry leaf, the steeped leaf, and the soup, as Mr. Glass would like me to call it, in the cup. Now in these two cups you'll see I had actually used the bowl for steeping itself. And that's where the spoon is very handy. Because when you're doing the bowl evaluation, this is like a very typical way in Asia for them to do the evaluation. If you go to like India or any of the colonized industries, you'll see the certified set is what they'll usually use in their cupping. But in China, in Taiwan, they'll just steep it directly in the bowl. And so yeah, you've got your leaf here directly in the bowl. See here. So this is actually the white tea. This is the ruby white. Mr. Glass is your father. Okay, well, sorry. Excuse me, Eric Glass. So yeah, this has actually been steeping for a long time. And that's kind of the purpose of doing the bowl steeping, is that you can actually see the evolution of the steep over time. Because when you steep it in the cupping set and you decant it like I did here, you really only get to evaluate how the steeping has been for that prescribed amount of time. But when you have it in the bowl like this, you can come through and pull some of the soup, as Eric said, from here. So here I've got a spoonful of soup, and you can evaluate it. That's good. And over time, it can continue to steep in the same bowl, and you can keep pulling. And the spoon, works so you can move it over. Sometimes you don't even want to drink it. You just want to look at the color of the liquor or the soup, and look at its clearness. Hi, Jake. Got some ruby white here. Your favorite. So yeah, you can see how nice and clear this liquor has steeped. So this has actually been steeping for almost an hour. Still tastes very good. So that's something else. You might have noticed I slurped when I took that in. It's not just for style purposes. I know I look really cool doing it, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for a purpose. That purpose is to better release all of the tea onto my palate. So you take it with some air. And so when you slurp it in with the air, it will fully spread all of the liquid all over your palate. Not just on your tongue, but on the sides of your palate as well as the roof of your palate. So you evenly coat everything. And actually, this form of sipping or slurping, I learned from coffee. When I was in my undergrad degree, we went to the Specialty Coffee Association of America, and we learned how to cup the coffee there. And so that's how it's done there. And it's how it's done even in wine and in liquors. Yeah, because you want to get the full expression all over your palate. Additionally, after you take your sip, it's good practice to release air, exhale through your nose. So that way all the volatile compounds, when they come in when you drink it, can exit, and you can better connect with your evaluation of those volatile compounds. Some tea masters in Taiwan have even told me you should take a big drag of a cigarette before you take it, and that will like better clean your olfactory receptors so that you can evaluate the tea better. It's just a little tea master joke. It's very interesting. The culture of tea evaluation, like here in the States, people put a little bit of reverence into it. They prescribe a little bit of reverence and importance in how serious you need to take your tea tasting. But, you know, in places like Taiwan, where they're evaluating teas that are potentially going to cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, you'll see the tea master chain smoking cigarettes at the tea table while they're evaluating the teas. And they say, "Oh, this helps this helps me develop more confidence and everything with my palate." I don't fully agree with that. Actually, I don't agree with it even a little bit. But just an interesting little side story about the tea industry and how tea is around the world. So yeah, this is just bowl evaluation, and you can keep it steeping for as long as you like and just keep pulling from it. Even after the tea has cooled. So in this case, in all cases, the tea has cooled because I brewed all of these over an hour ago. But there's relevance to knowing how the character of a tea will change as it's cooling. You know, that's probably not how most people are going to enjoy this tea. They're probably going to enjoy it Gung Fu style in their Gaiwan. But when you're evaluating a tea before purchasing it or deciding, you know, how you're going to make a blend or whatnot, it is very useful to understand how the tea reacts to different brewing recipes and how it reacts over time. So even, you know, if let's say we bowl brew all of these teas and evaluate that this tea comes out amazing after it cools, that could be good intel to motivate you to try brewing it cold brew and seeing how it comes out versus the hot brew. Another reason why these cupping sets are used and why standardized brewing recipes are used in evaluating teas, particularly a brewing style called trial by fire. So trial by fire is brewing in these cupping sets with boiling water for a very long time. So maybe even 5 minutes. And that's a long time for brewing leaf in such a small space. You put like 2.5 grams or 3 grams here. This is, you know, not more than 4 ounces. And so basically you're over steeping the tea. You're putting a lot of pressure on the tea when you're steeping it. And this is a good practice because if you have to evaluate over 20 teas, which is often the case when you're at a tea brewing competition. So Eric Glass mentioned that these cupping sets are used in Taiwan competitions. It's for that reason, because they have to evaluate dozens of teas. And when you steep it at a high degree, like the trial by fire, you are bringing out everything in the tea that you can taste, including the good stuff and the bad stuff. Bad stuff being, you know, too much tannic, bitterness, astringency, like the extremes of the quality characteristics. A good quality tea should be able to brew well even at those high temperatures. So like this white tea, you know, I've been steeping it. I started out with pretty hot water and it's been steeping for an hour and it's still coming out quite good, quite mild, enjoyable. And so, yeah, a tea like this is going to stand up to trial by fire much more than, you know, a lower grade white tea or oolong tea or whatever, that those negative characteristics could come out with that trial by fire. So, yeah, it helps you narrow it down. So, you know, that's the thing, like when we go to like Nepal and there's hundreds of teas that we have to evaluate because all the small tea growers come out and share their teas and want feedbacks. we'll have to go through so many of them, and it's like, how do you even start? How do you even decide which ones are the top tier for us to hone in our focus on? And the trial by fire really helps with that, because yeah, you can just go with your spoon and down the line, and bitter, 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 bitter. Okay, this one's not so bitter. This one's still interesting. Other character in the tea is shining through all those negative characteristics if they are there, and it'll allow you to hone in your focus on the teas that will actually be what you're looking for. So yeah, that's another important reason that we use these cupping sets. But really, we would only use these cupping sets for like professional evaluation. These are definitely not. I mean, they're definitely not sexy. I'm not feeling very sexy with these in front of me. The bowl brewing I think is kind of sexy. That's pretty fun. The fun way to learn about tea and to try the tea. But these things are not really, I don't think that they're really great for having a very presentable, sexy tea service. I'd much rather use a gaiwan or a teapot than one of these ISO certified tea cupping sets. But for the sake of the event that I did earlier today, I did want to show the folks that were a part of it, which actually, if you guys want to be a part of it too, there is still time. You can get involved if you go to the teaanditspeople.com website. It's the first thing that you can select on that website to browse. You can still get in on the events. All of the live videos are recorded and are available for playback privately. So unfortunately, unless you purchase tickets to this event, you won't be able to access those presentations. Yeah, Eric, Taste the People's Tea. I was promoting it for weeks. I guess you didn't see it. I launched it on International Tea Day. But yeah, Eric, if you want to join in, you can totally get tickets, and I can get the teas to you if you're in the U.S. I can get to the teas to you in time for our next event, which is it's Thursday, so it's in 2 days. There's 6 events total, and they're all happening on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 p.m. Pacific. So you can calculate what time that is for you. And so yeah, if you get in late, you can see the playback of the video I did today of these 3 teas and drink these 3 teas with us. And then we have 5 more events, and there is 3 teas with each of those. Oh, you haven't been on social media. Well, thank you for coming with us here and joining us today, Eric Kloss. Very kind of you. So yeah, the next class we're doing on Thursday is Yankee Tea Factory, Yangku Tamang. We're going to focus on her story of how she became a tea maker and the types of tea that her and her family are making now. And we'll taste 3 different teas from her factory. And then in the following weeks, we will feature the Kinizuka family, Alexander Halim. Oh, Eric. Jake says aloha via Instagram. Eric was on Instagram. You guys could have been chit-chatting with each other there on Instagram. He's on Facebook now. But, and then, Alexander Halim from Indonesia, and then Rajan Barua from Assam, India, and then closing it out with the Lee family of Nano, Yunnan. So yeah, these presentations include tasting, and they're in private Zoom meetings, so I am able to answer your questions about your brewing or about your brewing tools. And actually, all the people that bought tickets for that class bought the entire series, so it's kind of cool. We'll all be able to get friendly with each other and get to know each other. Oh, hi. Oh, that's cute. You guys are saying hi to each other on Instagram. That's sweet. Jake, Eric, are you guys drinking tea today? I'm gonna put a guess out there that Jake is drinking this tea. I know he recently procured some. This Ruby White. Maybe he needs more. So yeah, I'll pull the leaf out of all of these. So that's what's cool after you steep these. Heating water. What are you going to brew? Jake? See how different this is? Even brewed, you can see how different like this black tea is. So much more compact than the white tea is so wiry. So that's a good view there. Oh, White Forest. That's a lovely tea. White Forest from Nepal. Rogué. That's interesting. So Eric says that he's drinking a Rogué cultivar grown in Taiwan and made as a baozhong. That sounds pretty interesting. It sounds pretty delicious, actually, to be honest. I'd be curious to try that. See, that's Taiwan. That's actually what I was like. It was a recurring theme in the class that I was doing for these three teas. Is that Taiwan is such a unique tea producing country. It's relatively new. Amazing. I bet you, Eric. It's relatively new in the history books of tea making in Taiwan. Taiwan's tea industry is actually newer than India's tea industry. When tea plants were first being taken to Darjeeling and into Assam to develop the estates there,